You're listening to the Waypoint TV Podcast Network, brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Bowhunter Chronicles podcast, brought to you by Huntworth. Huntworth gear for all types of weather, all types of terrain, all types of budgets. It's clothing that just works. Check them out at huntworthgear.com. Man, it's fully on. Frickin' hunting season is here. Our Marco Polo group is blowing up with people from the youth hunt, people that are out west hunting, people that in other states, knocking down deer. People are out in the woods. Hunting season is upon us. And with that, I'm publishing this right now, I'm getting ready to wake up tomorrow morning, hop on a plane, and head to Colorado and chase some elk with one and only Uncle Frank. So really looking forward to that. But we got to do the business side of things here. And was able to get out in the blind with my daughter for one hunt for the youth hunt. Saw tons of deer. One little buck that did not present an opportunity. And I don't know. I think I'm pretty okay with maybe it going to doe season. I don't know. It was cool to be able to, the property we were on couldn't shoot does, and to have the conversation with my daughter about like, no, we can't shoot those. Kind of like the same thing like that's going on right now. We're seeing it with the early doe season where guys are seeing bucks and can't shoot them and all of that stuff. And it's just the way that it goes. But I think it puts you in the right mindset for like the future of hunting. So anyways, I think it's just super cool. Very excited for the season to be upon us. As soon as I get back from Colorado, it's going to be all hands on deck for a couple days of work and then straight into the Patreon hunt. So really, really looking forward to that. Got to give a shout out to our sponsors, man. I just went, I did get one of the water feather boats, and the Latitude guys are using them also. So Kevin was so gracious enough to go grab that for me. And then I got to go to their warehouse and see, all of their new product. The new platforms are incredible. Can't wait to get to hunt off of one. They're waiting for some more bolts, basically, before they can release some more of those. Got to see some super secret projects that are really, really awesome. Really looking forward to that coming through. I'm a Huntworth guy, right? But the Real Tree they have on their Maverick saddles, I only saw it on the Maverick, I think that it's on the other ones, is amazing. Using my Ranger 22 as my carry-on tomorrow. I'm going to use it as a day pack in Colorado. Really, really awesome stuff. Looking forward to using most of that stuff this season. And go over, check their stuff out. You can use code BHC to save 15% over there. I got to talk to him about that because, honestly, I want you guys to, it helps me out, right? But there's better codes out there. You can save 20% with some of the other codes. So, I appreciate you guys using it, and I know some of you have. But if you're just trying to save money, there's some better codes out there. So do some shopping around. But Genesis 3D, really looking forward to him up at the Patreon hunt. They've got a code for Patreons, and Austin stuff is amazing. Can't wait. Using his Insta360 mount for my strap. That it's just so simple, easy. I love that camera, and to have that integration, just super easy for filming, right? So Genesis 3D, definitely check them out. Big shot. Spartan Forge. Spartan Forge is going to be huge coming out here on the elk hunt and then for the Patreon hunt. Really, like I say, those guys, the people that support the show, our sponsors, partners, all that, Lucky Buck, Kanati, Zinger, all of them, thank you guys so much. But this podcast here, we did in person live at the Muskegon Bowman's Club, and got to shoot. Was finally getting my tapes all set up for everything for the season. And yes, I know I shouldn't be doing that right before a hunt, but I was just setting my tapes. I'd been shooting quite a bit, so it was just getting these arrows set up with a sight tape. So I don't know. You can feel how you want about that. But really awesome talking to Nate. Really different perspective on the public land, private land. I don't know what I'm going to name this podcast. I wanted to name it Are All Private Land Hunters Assholes? But that doesn't do Nate a disservice. It probably would have got a whole lot of clicks. But I can't do that. Nate's going to be up at our Patreon hunt too. So, just really, really awesome conversation. I think you guys are going to love it. As always, thanks for listening.
Well, that's kind of cool. It's got the controls on the base like that.
Yeah, that's for the Sony camera over there.
Oh, you can move that around on that?
Yep.
Toggle it? Is that what that is?
Zoom, start it. Yeah, it's pretty slick. Those ZV-1s are pretty slick. So
I just have a Rebel TI-5 that I bought years ago, and I videotaped Henry. Did I tell you that Henry shot a buck Saturday night?
I heard it from Brad, and
he got one.
But then you didn't post anything about it?
No,
or?
I don't. It's his buck, so it's kind of, we'll see. I might make something on it, but I tried using that camera in the heat of the moment. I did mess with the focus, but I had it in the wrong setting, so I couldn't change the ISO, and it happened so quick. I watched I could have had such a cooler video.
Well,
and I just messed it up.
I did the exact same thing last year with my daughter. So my camera that I was using, had the ISO turned all the way up from when I was at Kansas, trying to get these bucks all the way across the field. And, there's a deer, and I'm trying to do all this stuff, and I pull it up, and I had the Insta 360, so I just clicked it on, and I had it in my hand. I was holding on to it. And then I'm trying to video, and I can get just the audio on this because it's completely blown out. But the Insta 360 video is amazing.
It worked well.
It worked
So
incredibly.
another thing I screwed up on, we did the recovery, and I have that little pocket camera, and I had a microphone on him, and I was like, I'll recover this whole thing. And, it was sweet. Went to go look at it yesterday. I did it in slow motion the whole time. So lost all the audio. I'm like, oh, dude, I'm so sorry. He's like, you made me wear that for nothing. I was like, I'm sorry, dude. But yeah, I had it in AV mode instead of manual mode. So I'm trying to mess with it, and it didn't work. It wasn't on a tripod because the tripod was squeaky and loud. It was just man, I got to get better at this.
Yeah, well, I think that's one of the things where everybody thinks that, I need to video everything, and this is, and I think it kind of goes. So, Nate Rozeveld,
yes.
the Michigan Wild podcast, we're here at the Muskegon Bowman's. He reached out and he said, hey, should we get together on a in person? And I feel like you're doing the rounds. You're I'm going to do this. I'm going to meet people in person. I'm like, well, I got to set up a couple sight tapes. So Muskegon Bowman, actually it was supposed to be tomorrow. I'm headed to, we did the podcast with the water feather guys, and he was like, well, we'll get you a bow, blah, 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 but we got to figure out a way for you to get it. And, so then he was doing some stuff, with the Latitude guys, or they wanted to reach out and try and do a collab or something. So Kevin got a hold of me, and he's like, hey, can you get a hold of Jeff and put us in touch? So we're supposed to go down there, have lunch, all that stuff. And we had to switch days. So I had to say Nate, can we switch days? But I literally got to set these sight tapes up. So he got a little look into the way that I do things here.
Exactly how you think Adam would do it is how he does it. But yeah, I'm doing the rounds just because I'm pumped for season. That was one thing. October's coming. It's here. It's going to be here before we know it. And I'm been doing the podcast for just over a year. I think July was a year. And I was like, man, I've done this for a while. I really like a lot of you guys. You've been on my podcast and kind of returned the favor a little bit. Hey, if you need availability, I can be flexible. The way my work schedule is right now, I can kind of I'm running all over the place. So reach out to everyone I kind of know. I'm hey, if you want to do something, let's do it, because next thing you know, all my free time is going to be spent in a tree.
Yeah.
So I kind of am taking advantage of that.
Yeah. But to that point, we talked a lot today, while we were shooting bows, and just kind of talking over the whole ideal behind what people think they want and what they really want. And I think for me, the 360 camera, I'm trying to use it for the podcast here today to see kind of how it works, if it'll work in that capacity. But it's the ultimate like easy angle. Like the bear hunt that we did, I showed it to my cousin who does the Michigan Whitetail Pursuit. He kind of runs that and does all the editing for it. And he was like, "Oh my God, that's awesome." So check out Michigan Whitetail Pursuit, Camp Benny. That's my cousin Ben.
Oh, cool.
And but he watched that bear hunt and he was like, "Oh my God." And that was just in 1080. Like it could be in 4K and be a little bit better. And I just think like for a regular guy or trying to like capture those moments like with your son or like on the youth hunt or whatever, like the 360 camera is like, it's, I just, the way I explain it to people is like, it's what you wanted the GoPro to be. Like you wish you want it to go out there, but it doesn't zoom in as well. And then you want it to be on you and like whatever. And like, you can just hit one button and it does everything. So it's like,
done.
Definitely
simple.
Give it a try. So before I went and got a, A7 III or whatever Joe's using like, for a camera, like get it into 360, hit the button, see how you like it. And then try and like augment with like, oh, I wish I could do this or I wish I could do this. Cause I mean, between your phone and like something like that just can capture everything. I mean, it's pretty incredible. Like what you can come up with. I
wish I would have done better because I shot a doe, walks out of frame last year, missed it. Early dose, he's like, this is perfect 12-yard shot. Camera's there. It's a great shot. Missed that. Messed up on a buck October 5th because I tried to move the camera at full draw. There's all those things that the guys who are good at it make it seem really easy. And I do have a GoPro too, but that thing just, like you said, it's like it's there, but it's not how I want it. And then I did shoot a couple bucks with my bow last year, and one of the times, 20-yard shot, the deer's coming, GoPro's on me kind of. I turn it, I'm like, oh, I'll have this thing easy. I turn the thing quite a ways, not even close to being near the deer. I'm like, why? It's like, what's the point of this thing? So I was seeing this thing operate, the 360, and like you talking about something that might be a good solid investment because you're trying to like manual like some of those cameras I have, it's an old camera. I got it from a buddy who's big into, video and photography, and he's like, gave me a decent deal, but this is like 5 years ago. And it was probably, I don't even know how old it is. But, you're trying to manual focus it, and then it's like, how zoomed in do I need to be? Because I don't know how to edit. But, like, all I really want is just did I hit the deer where I think I hit the deer? Or did it run that way? I think there's a lot of value in that kind of stuff. And then I like having, like, it's cool to look back at it and be like, oh, hey, Henry, for example, oh, you shot that deer. And he's like, when I pulled the GoPro footage last year, he was all excited, like, oh, I can see you do this, Dad. This is going to be cool. And it's like, nope, you see him run after the shot, kind of. And yeah, so there's those things that I'm just not that good at. Yeah.
Well, but I think that's the point, right? Like everybody, we watch these guys that are great at this stuff or that do like an incredible job. And then we think they make it look so easy, like we can do that too. And it kind of goes back to, because that's been like the vein of this whole day, right? It's like I'm out here shooting. And the first words, matter of fact, that Nate said to me was like, oh, there he is, world's worst bow hunter, right? And then like follow on later, he's like, why do you say that you're a bad archer? Like you're doing good. And he's like, is it because you surround yourself with like guys that are perfect? I'm like, absolutely. Like the guys that I shoot with, like, we'll laugh at these groups, but like for a regular guy or for a hunter, like this is fine. But we have these perceptions because now it's so easy to see the people that are doing really well.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like you get brought into that space a lot. You can see the behind the curtains a little easier. They still only let you see so much, right? But we've all seen the crazy, Levi Morgan stuff and those kind of Dudley, shooting all these crazy good groups. And for me, like I've always shot my bow since a little kid, but I've been the crazy one. Like I was one who shot my bow way more than any of my other buddies. So I am kind of the outside looking in for some things. And I've seen a lot of different people shoot bow, help a lot of people get into it. And I come out here and I'm watching you execute your shots. And yeah, the groups are maybe a little inconsistent, but you're shooting 2 different bows. You're trying to get ready for this. Like you've been shooting a lot. And I'm like, man, dude, you're executing great shots. Like to me, you're doing the same thing every time. You're breaking a shot. You're consistent. Like you're not like, you're a little hard on yourself. But that's like you said, like who do you surround yourself with? And, what's helped me in my archery game, I guess, like I told you today, like I shot at whatever that 80 yards. I barely ever shoot over 60, 65 because I don't really have a space at my house. But hearing guys talk about shooting great groups at 100, I'm like, dude, I want to try that. And you shoot it at 100, you're like, that was a pretty good group at 100. And then you see pictures and videos of guys hitting stuff like, man, I got a long ways to go. So it is all about how what you challenge yourself against, I guess, what the ante is, I guess.
Well, yeah. And I mean, that's the thing is like, it goes into like deer hunting, right? So if you put in X amount of hours and you get this, but I mean, so perfect example of like the duality of deer hunting, right? So one of our buddies is out in Kansas right now with all of his kids. They're, scouting, doing all the stuff. They're already up in a tree. Guy comes walking in carrying a 30-pound stand right in front of him and, just traipsing around. Apparently couldn't get set up. And all of a sudden, boom, muzzleloader goes off. Guy shoots a really great 9-point, just wandering around in a T-shirt. And these guys have been scouting. They're already there. They're in ahead of time. And that can happen too. Or you can be, 200 miles of scouting and, thousands of dollars worth of trail cameras and trail cam subscriptions and all of these things and food plots and implements and everything. And we have a different level of expectation, but our perspective rarely changes on a flat screen of our phone that we're looking at. We don't see all of that. So I think it is who you surround yourself with, but in today's world of you and I, right? Who is your internet friends? Who are the people you follow and who are the people that you really know in real life, right? And so like, oh, my buddy in Kansas or whatever, well, how do you just follow him? Dudley does this. Well, what does Dudley do every morning when he wakes up and, how long has he been doing it and the level of dedication? So it's a weird spot, whether, it's how it transitions directly into anything, whether it's videoing, whether it's construction, whether
day-to-day life, right?
Like, you and I can both build decks, but they're going to be different. They're going to be markedly different.
Yes, exactly. And that's like, it's the trajectory that you want to be on. Like if you said, hey, I really want to shoot as good of a group as whatever friend you know closely, you would emulate him, you would learn as much, you would put as much effort into it that he has, and then next thing you know, you probably would start shooting a better group. But also, you might not be quite to his. There's a point where talent does overtake some of that. But with archery, I like archery and bow hunting. Like sometimes you can have a bet, or mostly you can have a really good experience with the amount of effort you put in, right? You can kind of like dictate that by your level of effort. But then also there's those guys, like I know some people that could probably outshoot me right now. And I don't know how many times they've shot their bow this summer, if at all. They might not, because they just naturally can execute a great shot. Gun hunting too, the same thing. Like my sisters are such good gunshots. I'm like, you guys, I haven't shoot a gun my whole life, and you guys can blow me out of the water at, shooting paper. And, deer walks out, just cold killer, boom, done. I'm like, man, I kind of have to like struggle a little bit to, do that. So there is some of that, but also you have to like, when you come back about the friend groups, and we all kind of have the same circle of all of us, you use the word a little bit today, insanity, like we're a little insane or diabolical, with how we handle things. We kind of like are in our little group, and it's good because I've found that like immersing myself in that a little bit better has like challenged me to be better. And then doing like a 3D league, I've never done that before. This year was the first time doing that. I actually came here and shot a couple times. You know how weird it was? Like, not just like, oh, that was a kill shot. Oh, I got to hit this little spot that's, off center that far, and it's this target, and the shadow's right there. So I got to hit that little shadow, and I had to really like mentally focus on executing that shot for that little spot. I feel like it's helped me a lot, like in the process, but I'm channeling it all dictate on hunting, right? So mentally, like pick my spot on my deer, go through my system and hit that instead of just like pull back and kill shot. Cool. Like it's how we'll see how it translates to the field, but I did enjoy that too.
Well, but like, again, when you get into like that sort of stuff, and I feel like John did it a little bit, for a minute. But a lot of those guys, you notice like a difference in like their setup also. Cause like I shot Nate's bow, the thing weighs 760 pounds. It is like, I don't know. It is so heavy and shoots real fast. kind of loud. But I couldn't imagine shooting a 3D league like with that bow, because guys will have heavier bows, longer axle to axle, big brace height, but then they'll be shooting a less of a draw weight and more of a, or actually less let off, so that their holding weight may be the same as their hunting bow or whatever, but so that they can hold on there forever with the big bars and all that stuff. And we see a little bit of that in our indoor league, but it's a whole nother animal when you're going and you're like trying to shoot spots or even spots on these 3D, and it's like you run into the people that know exactly where everyone is, and they have them at their house, so they're like, nope, it's over there, blah blah blah. And it's just like, it is such a weird.
Fishing like a local isn't just about catching fish. It's about connecting with the environment and the people who call it home. It's about hearing the stories and traditions that have been passed down for generations and sharing unforgettable moments with the people you meet along the way. Fishing like a local is having an experience that stays with you forever. And with Fishing Booker, you can experience it too, no matter where you are. Discover your next adventure on Fishing Booker.
The 1911 is one of the most iconic firearms in history. Designed by John Browning, the 1911 was the standard issue sidearm of the U.S. military from 1911 to 1985. While Colt produced the original, almost every major firearm company has produced its own version. It's wildly revered for its reliability, crisp trigger, and is still a favorite for all types of shooters. Whether you're looking to buy or build a 1911 and just about everything for guns, log on to midwayusa.com.
Thing to go out there and be like, okay, well, if this animal was there, like, where would I shoot him? Like, not where you're supposed, not where it counts in this endeavor, right?
Yeah. So the only thing I didn't want to do that. I wanted to just keep my hunting bow and do that, and that bow was set up exactly how it was, all 3D. Like, I still had all the arrows in the quiver, even though I was only shooting one, maybe two arrows at a time. I just changed arrow weight. That was it. Just to get a little flatter shooting arrow. So it was interesting shooting with guys who had their setups, set up for that, like lenses on their sights. Like, I've never shot a lens, like, or amplifier, maybe they're called, different light up, how their fiber optic pins were set up. I'm like, this is weird. And I'm, this is just my target bow. And I haven't got to that point yet. I don't know if I will, because I like my bow being just an extension of me, right? And you say your bow's so heavy, and like, to me, it don't feel heavy. Like, my last bow felt heavy compared to that. So, trying to fine tune some things and do that. But yeah, there's a different tiers of that stuff, and that goes right into hunting as well. Like, there's different tiers of guys in the hunting community too. So I kind of like that parallel a little bit. And you can see it when you're on a range. You can kind of see like the range of, is serious the right word? I don't know if serious is the right word, but there is money spent differently, and gear. Guys will choose to spend things different on that. You parallel that with hunting. Like, they can spend their money with leasing or equipment or that kind of thing. And then their approach to when guys, like, I'm like a sponge. Like, I'm trying to, like, this dude's really good at shooting. Why is he so good? I'll watch them. How they walk up, their system, their process, their dedication, which is really simple when you go do a hanging hunt that night. Well, I'm going here because the wind's like this, or I have this trail camera, or 10 days ago I saw this. So their approaches are similar. So I got a kick out of that. And then for me, like, it was like, okay, I want to get better every week. And some weeks I got better and some weeks I didn't. And my season goes that same way. And year to year, I just try to, like, get a little better. And then, eventually get to the point where I'm maybe content, but I doubt it.
Well, and that's so weird to me to think about that, because, like you said, you've been doing this a year. One of the things I picked up on, like, from the first year and a half of doing a podcast is, like, there were very few, like, big name killers, like, in our world, not the, Levi Morgans or Lakoskis or the Drurys or whatever, like, because that's not my, I wouldn't reach out to those guys to try to talk to them, because I don't think we could have, like, the same conversation.
Can't relate to their life.
Yeah. I mean, I could, and I could make a conversation out of it, but it isn't anything that interests me. But, like, the Joe Rentmeesters and Dan Infalts and Curtis Zavels and, those guys all Wisconsin guys.
Yeah, you like Wisconsin or something? Don't you tell me you
no.
like the Packers? I might have to
No.
walk.
No. But like those guys, they want a bow that shoots 20 yards and a broadhead that kills at 20 yards.
Mhm.
But beyond that, like they could give two shits about like what their arrow's doing at 60.
Yeah, ask Alex Chop that. You just did a great episode with him. It was like so much good conversation and real world stuff. Ask him how many feet per second his bow is, or ask him how good's your group at 50. He'd probably look at you cross-eyed like, I don't care. Like, I'm just killing deer, right?
Right. And that's the thing is like there's people who get so worked up about like being perfect. And like you saw that today, like I'm minute of animal kind of. I mean, and I'm making good shots and my groups are fine. But like, because I wasn't center on the bullseye, didn't bother me. Like the bow was shooting where I was aiming it, and I could relatively understand why the arrows were going there.
Yeah.
I made the big adjustments or whatever, but I know that in the moment, it doesn't matter if that deer's at 21 and a half or 23. Like my 20-yard pin's going to be fine. Like that at 40, like I know that, maybe I'm be just a little bit low, but I'm fully comfortable like in my equipment and my ability to make those shots. I'm more concerned about getting that close to the animal, finding the animal and then getting in there. And then we'll let all of those basement reps and all of this stuff like eat. You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely.
And I think that, again, it goes back to like, where do you want to spend your time or your money or your effort or whatever? And if you could be the best shot in the world, but if you only got, squirrels and mourning doves to shoot at, like it's going to be a long season,
Oh yeah. I guess I always try to go back to what, like Adam, what do you want out of your year? What do you want out of your archery experience? Or what do you want? Some guys, they might live for the 3D course. They might live for tack. Like that is like they love that kind of stuff. And like, I enjoy it. But if you said, hey, Nate, you never get to shoot tack the rest of your life. And I'd be like, I've never shot it. So like, that's fine. Like, I'm cool. I don't need to do that. I'd rather, or if it's like, you can do this, or you can go hunting, or maybe do like a hunt somewhere. I'd be like, I'll go do the hunt. Like, I don't need to do those things. But it comes down to the individual. What do you want out of it? I think, but sometimes there's certain things I really like in my like hunting journey or my shooting thing that like really get me like excited. Like I look forward to shoot my bow before work in the morning. Some mornings, like I really get a kick out of that. I get a kick out of, doing this little scouting mission, maybe like summertime, like, oh, I've never been here before. I'm gonna go walk around and just see what it looks like. Love that. Some guys might not like that. So I think it kind of comes down to the individual and what you're looking for out of your effort, right? Your time, your money, your effort. And it's hard for me to like, I know what I like, but I don't necessarily know what you like. I like to know because I want to be buddies with all the people who are like-minded. I feel like you can iron sharpens iron in that regards, but you've been pretty adamant about things that you're all about. And I'm like, dude, I would never do that. Like, that's not for me. And that's the unique thing about this. And that's what's cool about, this kind of relationship with people. You can hear little things and, I can maybe morph. Like I'm okay with change. Like maybe I can kind of change a little bit if I feel like I'm doing something wrong, but for the most part, it comes down to like what I want to do.
Like from that, I think it goes kind of like right into like, so you just did a podcast with Aaron Blicey in the fall, talking about not filling tags and like only like, I could never, ever, be like, I'm only going to shoot 5-year-old bucks. Like that's it. Cause like they don't come with an ID tag and, I don't have I'm not running those trail cameras. I'm not doing all that stuff to say, all right, this is how it's going to work, but, same thing. I like to be surprised. Like, I don't want to have to like, I mean, I just feel like the outfitter, like you go in, like you can shoot this one, you can shoot this one, you can shoot this one. This one's off limits, like not that one. He needs another year. You know, so
you shoot that one, you got to pay an extra $1,000.
You got like
you
got like a target package. Like I want to go out there and like be, you know, like I've said it before, like be validated in me going out there scouting and all that stuff. And like, and you talk about like, oh, I want to go scout, I want to go do these things. These are things that I want to do. Do you decide like, okay, do you want to go and like go out and hunt public land? But what is the point if you're like going to pass deer that like don't exist in other places? Like, oh, I've passed some 3.5s on public land.
Mm-hmm.
Like, did you know that there was 5.5-year-old bucks there? It was just like built into your head. Like, how does that work?
So I get what you're saying. So like when I go out of state, I do a lot of public land hunting, and obviously you have a better chance of running into an older age class deer out of state. I mean, that's well known. Everyone talks about that. And then like home state of Michigan, when I see a 3.5-year-old deer, obviously like on private pieces or permission pieces that I have history on, I've made it a point to like do my best to like educate myself on how I feel like I'm above average maybe. Like if a random deer like walks out across 20 yards away, I have a pretty good like gut reaction to like age class based on body is what I try to go off of, and time of year, right? Like I feel like a deer in the summer looks completely different than a deer in peak rut or in October when they're in their peak physical shape. So I feel like I've really made a point of really learning what that is. So I put a lot of effort in that. That's a lot of like watching videos and listening to people, talking to people, and just seeing deer. Like, and I'm blessed to have high deer populations where I hunt. So I see lots of deer. I have lots of different deer on trail camera. I am immersed in that. So that makes it much, much easier, because that plus turnover, like I do get deer that I see multiple years in a row. So I've kind of learned like certain things. Now every deer is different, so I'm not 100% on that by any means. So like I've made it a point to try really hard to get good at that. So I feel pretty confident in my ability to judge a deer as it walks by. Now, heat of the moment, rut and buck chasing a doe, like, yeah, I'm not going to have time to make that. And if that might come down to more of a headgear thing. Like if I'm Southern Illinois last year, never stepped foot in Southern Illinois, walked my butt off, looked, set up on this little point and heard a buck grunt and looked over, and all of a sudden here comes this deer in a zombie walk, from by the time I seen him 60 yards away, came by, he was probably 110-inch 7-point. But he was able to walk right by me, and I'm like, man, I've walked like for days, and this is the first buck in bow range. Didn't even have my bow in my hand because I was so focused on seeing what he looked like in the binos, trying to make a decision, and then he walks by at 18 yards broadside. I'm like, okay, I was right. Like that's a deer I don't want to shoot. Now, if you were with me and you go and you smoke that thing, dude, I will be ecstatic. Like that's the thing. I'm legit that way. Like if you shoot the deer like that, or he walks by me, I pass him, he goes, you're hunting 500 yards away from me, he comes by you and you make a great shot, I will celebrate with you. I'll be pumped. But just for me personally, I'm just like, I don't need to shoot that, and I'm okay with that.
So like in that situation though, like I said, for me, it's like feeling like validated. Okay, like I was in the right spot, like whatever. And like, how do you, I don't want to say like rationalize, but how do you like break down like what to do differently? Because I feel like it parallels like anybody that's like in their hunting journey, right? So like, if you're in a spot where you're not seeing any deer, then obviously, okay, I need to adjust. And now I'm in a spot where I'm seeing deer, but they're not the deer that I want to see, whether it's a 200-inch buck that I'm chasing or if it's a 1.5-year-old, just an antlered deer. Then you like pick up and change, or you are not validated, right? So you're like, okay, this is where I'm going to hunt. Like, oh, these aren't the class of deer that I want. But you've walked your butt off. You've set up on the best sign in the area. So how do you pivot? Or because I think most people either would say, okay, I'm going to have to go find where there's a bigger deer. Or if you're at that point where you're at the end of your hunt and this is the best sign that you have, like the old adage, right? You can't kill a 150 if there's not one there. If you haven't seen one and this is the biggest deer that you've seen or the biggest deer that's on the property, like, and I think that that's where people get twisted also is that like, if they're not there, you can't kill them.
Exactly.
So like, how do you where's
do
the
public
validation?
or private first?
Well, but I'm just talking about that situation.
That situation
in particular.
Okay, so that was public land, Southern Illinois, hilly, tons of property, like tons of public land all around. So that was from a podcaster standpoint or social media presence, I could have had a really cool story there if I would have executed my shot and killed that deer. Hey, I'm here in Southern Illinois. This is day 3 I think it was day 3. I have walked X amount of miles. It's 80 degrees during the day. It's tough conditions. I slipped into the spot that I've never stepped foot into, did a hang and hunt, and I had a white-tailed deer walk by sub 20 yards and I shot it. Like that would have they would have checked all those boxes. And maybe for a lot of guys, that's what they're okay with that. Like that's what they're looking for. For me, I'm always just seeking. Like I just want to find that bigger age class deer because I've seen them, I've hunted them in the past, and it's addicting kind of like once you start like learning that or find that little pocket. So perfect example on that trip, I was driving and walking and scouting all over, just diving into little pieces, trying to even jump a deer. I didn't care. I was like, if I jump one up and I see him run away, I'm in the chips. I'm at least somewhere in the vicinity. And I couldn't find one. I didn't find one. I had that was the only buck that came by in range. Like it was tough. Like I'd seen some really nice deer. I, had some driving around. I seen some, I would say for sure 3-year-olds. It was hard to tell because they were moving, but I was like, okay, there's some bigger deer in here. And that's how I actually found that spot. I had drove around, scouted, set up on a hill in the morning, glassed, like did all these things that you hear guys talk about and was like, okay, dove in, found some sign that I hadn't get to see on that whole trip, sat there, and the only thing that showed up was that deer. Well, then I abandoned that hunt and went back home because the weather conditions were better and capitalized here in Michigan. But my buddy stayed and he actually went back in that area and he's like, dude, you're only off like probably 200 yards. He's like, I went because I said, hey, I hunted here, but maybe you want to check out that spot because I didn't get there. And he's like, dude, sign was the best sign we've seen this whole time we were here. So like in my head, I'm like, dude, I was that close. That could have been the 4 or 5-year-old buck I wanted to find. And that's okay. I'm addicted to that. So like I will come back and do that every year. Like going to Kansas this year, never been to Kansas, but I'm going to be searching my butt off looking for one. And if I, hunt 7 days, 5 days and come up empty handed, I'll have fun doing it and I'm okay with that. And I think maybe I'm the crazy one because I'm okay. That's all I need, right? I don't need to fill that tag to be, happy with that. But maybe that's the wrong version too, because maybe it's because I have all the success behind me. So like I have a wall full of really nice Michigan deer, which, guys say, oh, if you can kill a nice one in Michigan, kill them anywhere. I have yet to kill one anywhere with my bow but Michigan. So I'm like, I don't know if that's true, but I'm trying. I've shot deer in Iowa. I don't really consider that, that's not even a fair comparison in that regards. So, but I've bow hunted out of Michigan. I've bow hunted out of state for 12 years and I've yet to kill one. So it's nuts.
It's interesting, that you say that and you use that like that you use that example because that's like fairly similar to my story last year in Kansas. But that was the like class of deer that I was targeting. I'm like, okay, if that's just like over 120, like I'm shooting it. And the fact that it happened like on my second day of hunting, but I feel like it wasn't like podcast or content or like social media, anything. It was like legitimately what I was after. Like, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't like, oh, cause I mean,
dude, that's why I love you, like for how you are, because that you shot that deer, not because of social media, not because of anything else. You went to Kansas with that goal and you got it. And dude, I will celebrate that. And if your goal is different than mine, I don't care. You did it. Like, and that's awesome.
But it's like the same thing. Like when I was in Ohio, like I had that absolute monster in after dark. And then the next day that little buck came walking by and like, I didn't even like it. It was like after the fact, like I realized like, oh man, I'm like watching him through the viewfinder of the camera. And I like look up and he's like 25 yards broadside, just has no idea that I'm there. And I'm like, oh, should I shoot him? Like, no, he's way too small. Like but I have this like weird thing where there's lots of deer that I should have shot at. I always say shot at because
it's not guaranteed.
It's not guaranteed. That I haven't like let arrows go on because I wanted to shoot something bigger, but then I don't have that wall. And so I feel like that's why I can like speak honestly to the guys that are like, well, I would just want to kill a big buck and I haven't killed them. And I'm like, don't do that. Don't do that.
Yes.
You know, and I've killed, you know, some really nice deer.
So what distance is considered a pass for you? I love it when guys, I passed that deer. Is it 50 yards? Is it 60 yards? Is it 20 yards? Because that's one thing I always like catch people saying or doing like, oh yeah, I passed a nice deer.
So I've 3 examples. Like the first one was when we were in Idaho. There was a deer bedded down, total archery challenge style, under this brush pile at 50. And I stalked in and I wanted to get to 25. I got to 30, but I wanted to get to 25. And then I like, and it was like down in this, like, it was not like a drainage. We were like up on this, he was like down below us from this logging road, and it was like super windy, but I was like sliding in the leaves, doing my best. And so I got to 30 yards on that deer, and I could have taken the shot for sure. Missouri, I had a deer inside of 25 making a scrape for 15 minutes. And then that one in Ohio where it was, you know, 25 yards away, just walking. And I guess there was one in Wisconsin that was like, it was a pass, and it was the smallest 8-point that I've ever seen. And it ran past me chasing does. And like in my mind, I was like, it's the last day. Like that was, you know, an opportunity. Maybe I should have shot him. Maybe if he comes back, blah, blah. And then he came back, and I got to full draw, and I was like, I just can't. I can't, you know, and that was at like 12 yards or something.
Yeah. So we're in the same mindset there. Like for me to consider me passing a deer is like a really good opportunity, you know, not forcing a shot, you know, those kind of things. Because I've all had that where you see the catch the glimpse of antler going through, and it's like, oh, I don't know if that's big enough. And then, you know, you glass them with your binos at 75 yards. Well, I don't really consider that a pass. Maybe I could have forced a shot, but like I didn't know what it was. So I don't count those. I kind of like passes like good, solid opportunities like that too. Because to me, like you said, that's the validation. Like, dude, I could have, like, that was a good shot, but I, you know, didn't do it for me. So that I did everything right, except it just wasn't the deer I want to shoot. That's kind of how I validate my experience.
Yeah, but like I said, like there's guys that have not shot like 4 points or 6 points that have never killed a deer with their bow or never killed a buck, or like,
you should shoot every deer you have an opportunity to shoot.
Yeah,
that's what I think. At least.
And I also think, like, you know, it's funny. I haven't watched in a long time, but I was watching the hunting public last night, and Jake shoots this buck in velvet at like 45 yards or something, and he shot him high, like through the backstrap, and then he went and ran him down and ended up killing him. But that's the thing, is like every year that first shot on an animal it's not like muscle memory, you know, it's like something I feel like it's like, at least for me, it's like I always screw up enough times. Like, So it's like, until it's second nature, like you just got to shoot stuff.
Yep. Oh, I can, not to like get too crazy and like how many deer I've killed, but I don't know the total. I have it all charted down somewhere on my little toe. I have a little, you know, I mark every deer, every doe I've shot with a gun, and doe I've shot with a bow, bucks, same thing. I'm somewhere around 30 bucks. You know, I'm 34 years old, hunting in some great areas, and I have shot my fair share of 1.5-year-old and 2.5-year-old bucks. Like that was my thing. From the time I was 12 to the time I was 22, 10 years, I shot whatever I really wanted. Like there was certain properties that had to be 4 on the side was like the only limiting factor I had. So like the doors are open, like you can shoot whatever. Then I started getting, when I turned 16, I started knocking on door permission because I didn't want to drive far to private property. So I got other private pieces to hunt, and then I could do whatever I wanted there, right? So I was just laying waste to does and bucks. Like every deer that got within bow range and I had taken my pocket, whap, I shot it. Till I was about, probably till I was about 20. And then I started targeting a little bit bigger deer, maybe 19, somewhere in there. And then 22 is when I was like, hey, I want to target 3.5-year-old bucks. It took me 5 years to shoot a 3.5-year-old buck from the time I was 22 to the time I was 27.
Friends of NRA is your chance to support our Second Amendment rights and preserve America's hunting traditions. Join Friends of NRA at one of our 600 exciting events nationwide. From games to auctions and exclusive firearms, Friends of NRA events are your chance to support a cause you care about while having a great time with patriots in your community. Whether you're a seasoned shooter, an avid hunter or outdoorsman, or passionate about freedom, there's a place for you within Friends of NRA. Visit friendsofnra.org to find an event near you. Stand up for freedom with the Friends of NRA.
Hunting boots are a critical component of any successful hunt. Whether walking a short distance to your blind or trudging miles through rugged terrain, your feet are carrying the load. Without the right boots, you could give up early and lose out on that trophy just over the ridge. At Midway USA, we make selecting boots for your next hunt easier. With just a few clicks of a mouse, you can decide on what's important, like waterproofing, insulation, size, width, and savings. For just about everything for shooting, hunting, and the outdoors, check out midwayusa.com.
And I had shot a lot of deer before that. So it's a journey. And I, on the fall, when I did the episode with Aaron, I talked about like the misery and stuff. But any new hunter, any of my buddies, you can ask them what I say. If you get a racked buck in range with a bow in your hand, kill that thing. Like, do what you can, experience that. Even if you have trail cameras, because like some of these guys their learning curve is really quick because they see all this stuff and they can just jump right into it. I got these cell cams. I got mock scrapes. I got, mobile hunting gear, which I'd hunted until I was probably about 20 before I even knew what that was. Like, no, it was a climber was all. And I was like, I don't like climbers. I slid down a tree once and I was like, I'm never doing that again. So I was, I would have to hang my sets and I would move my sets throughout the year. I was experimenting, but I didn't have a backpack. I couldn't just throw a backpack on and go climb any tree I wanted. So like I went through all that. Now I got buddies who have never shot a deer with a bow. They got like sweet mobile hunting gear. And they're like, well, I got a picture of this deer and this deer and this deer and all these little deer. I'm like, go kill those little deer. Like, learn how to kill those deer, then slowly work your way up. Because like you said, that's a whole nother experience. Like shooting foam to going to go take a life, the responsibility with that, and then does too. Like, I've shot a lot of does, but I live in areas that there's a lot of deer, so I can do that. So that's one thing I always want to make very clear to anyone who hears me talk. I've lived the other side of this. Like, I've been through it. Like, I was blessed to have really good deer numbers and really good properties, some good mentors. And then at a young age, I was like, man, I want to step this up. And I didn't start the podcast till I was on the other side of it, right? I didn't start podcasting when I was 22, like, oh, now I'm going to do this. It's like, no, I learned how to do it. I had some success for a few years, and then I started the podcast. So I always want to make that clear. Like, it's been a journey, and I've failed a lot. There's been heartache, and there's been times where you set up on a deer and you're like, oh my gosh. Like, I remember this one buck, I rattled him in, actually. I was probably 25. I was on a river bottom property, learned how to hunt like different terrain. Like, I wasn't hunting field edges anymore, like alfalfa fields. This was like river going through, like sneaking in this little point, did a hunt in the morning, hung the stand the day before, saw a buck with some does in the distance, cracked the antlers together, and he turned on a dime and came and I missed him at 35 yards. I shot right underneath him, never ducked. And that would have been cool, because that would have only been like after 2 years I shot a 3.5-year-old buck. Well, then fast forward another 3 years before I got one. So, I mean, I've had multiple experiences like that, and that was even with having deer under my belt before I did it. But yeah, I always want to like let guys know that, like, it wasn't like, oh, hey, I just started doing this. No, I've worked my way to it.
So what is your history with Michigan public land?
I have walked a lot of it. I have hunted a few spots, more so in the last 5 years than I did previously, but I didn't grow up with my dad's side of the family, never hunted public. My mom's side did. And the notion there's no deer there. So why leave deer to go find deer? And then I live pretty close to a decent sized area, and I've walked it a lot. I haven't walked all of it. I got buddies that hunt it too. So yeah, very rarely do I hunt public land in Michigan. I do go hang and hunt. I do those things. But primarily my public land hunting is only in out of state stuff.
And so that's what I'm like, what I wanted to talk about, because it's this weird thing, like to be like, okay, well, I'm only going to shoot 5-year-old bucks, or I'm only going to shoot, you know,
four. You go four. One property's 5. The rest are 4.
but then to go like out on like Michigan public land and have passed 3.5-year-old bucks,
yep,
and have passed some of these deer. Have you ever killed a 3.5-year-old or
on
better
public?
deer on public?
Nope, never. I've never killed a public land deer. I've seen a lot. I've passed a lot, but I've never killed one.
And so, like, I'm trying to figure out the reasoning behind that, because, like, if you're gonna go there, essentially, and not hunt one of the other properties that you have that hold these deer that you're targeting,
Mm-hmm.
right? Aren't you like wasting a sit anyways? And doesn't it like kind of like go back to like the antithesis of kind of like what everybody talks about, which is go hunting and not hoping? Because I think if it's like you're out there hoping,
yes,
I mean, unless you have them on camera or something like
yes,
that. And so
I know exactly how to answer this.
So like the validation, like, of how many years it took you to kill a 3.5, like, wouldn't it change like the accomplishment for you to do it there where you've never killed a deer on there? And it isn't necessarily like for anybody else, but just to be like, or is it just that you're like, you just let them walk and you're like, I could have killed you. Like, you know, like
I tell my buddies that. No, so I think it's a process on public, like it was a process for me with my private spots. And I don't have huge chunks. These are like little, sub 10 acre pieces. Some of them are. So my best spots are, less than that. So my thing is when I go in and I do maybe hunt a public land set, I have intel that lets me know that, hey, this is a hidden scrape maybe that I found while scouting. I have had a trail camera here, and I do get daylight buck movement. And then I kind of like go in there and use it as like a learning, like, okay, slide in there. Do I see the deer? Yes or no? Usually it's no. Okay, is my access right or wrong? Don't know. Camera stays there. You made it through the season. Well, my thing is kind of like, okay, I just need one to get to 4.5. And when I do get a 4.5-year-old on public in some of these spots, I want to know how to be able to hunt them. So like maybe it is like a wasted sit, like from a filling a tag perspective, but it's more of like, I got to make sure my access is right. Do I set up on this wind on this time of year? Does it do what I kind of think it's going to do? And then do I see deer? Do I see that deer? Or do I miss the window by like a week? Cause I leave those cameras just sit there. So it's kind of like a process. Like all I need is one of those 3.5-year-olds that I think is 3.5. Like honestly, I don't have as much history, but I do have some turnover. Once he turns 4, then I can kind of like, all right, now I will use what I've learned the last couple of years, got to know what that deer like to do, and then I'll capitalize. This may never happen. This may be just like a dream, or could be, could not be, but that's kind of how I handle Michigan public, like those couple spots. And now when I go, and then, those days I do hunt, they may be because I don't have like a solid play on any of my other spots for that. So I will spend a little bit of time, and then it's typically in the October time frame, first few weeks of the season. Don't get me wrong, I've killed deer on October 1st on private. I've killed them in the lull. I should have killed one the 5th last year of October. So it's kind of all depends on like weather pattern, wind directions, those things. But my thought process is when I do get a picture of a deer that I want to shoot in public, I want to at least know the area well enough that I can pivot, have a good time, be kind of like ahead instead of behind. Because I like, I know I can park over here and I can access through this way, or I know that there's, maybe that acorn or those oaks are dropping, so he's moved into this spot. This scrape's hot these dates over the past 3 years, so that's when I need to focus my time. So it's like a long game for me with that.
It's so hard for me to like wrap my head around that. Like for like you and Aaron specifically. We're like, well, I go wander around with the peasants, but no, I would never hunt there. It's, I've never killed a deer, and that they're deer over there. They just, you know, those steer.
They must taste different or something, right?
It just like blows my mind because I think, you know, and not to say that it's not hard to kill deer on private land, but I think if we look at, and granted, there's time of year difference in my analogy here, but if you look at like the youth hunt and the amount of does versus the amount of bucks that were shot, the amount of situation, you go out there and most of those I would imagine are on private land in the setup, like where I took my daughter. Like we walked down this nice pine field edge with bedding to the right, got out to the blind that was all corn behind us, and then a food plot, 200-yard square food plot right in front of us. Like I can see why that holds deer, why those deer are there, why they stay there. And if you don't, I mean, my daughter, she was like beside herself, like, why can't we shoot these does? And it's like, well, because the property owner says don't shoot the does, but the Amish kill all the does. And so these does feel safe here, and then they bring the bucks here later in the season. So, and it's like, if you can put those things together, like, yeah, and you've got the property and you've got people who don't shoot these deer, well, yeah, it's fun, you know, to you know, have your little livestock operation with antlers.
Named and like they come, you know, clap your hands, they come out of the woods. Yeah. I wish it was that easy. If it was that easy for me, I would definitely probably pivot a little bit, but like I don't know, man. I do have a leg up. Like right now on you, I have a leg up because I do have some of these properties. I don't get to do like hardly any habitat work to them. They're just, the properties are what they are, and the farmer does his farm ground. If I got space to put a food plot in, I do. But for the most part, my habitat stuff is lacking. I'm not very good at that. But I just recently started like consistently being on 4-year-old or 5-year-old bucks. Like, you know, I shot those. Like, this is kind of like the last handful of years. It's not like I've been doing this for a decade, you know, so maybe 5 years from now, if it's like, dude, yeah, I got tons of 4-year-old bucks running around. I've shot a few 5-year-old bucks. I know if I go sit in that tree because I've hunted every other tree in that area, that's the only tree that works, then it maybe won't be as fun for me, and I maybe I'll pivot. But then my goal is still, so guys shoot 4-year-old bucks on public land in Michigan, right? We've all seen pictures, hear stories. My maybe toxic trait is, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And maybe I'm just like slowly building myself up to that point. And then when I'm like, when the time comes where I'm like, I'm committed to doing this, I've like been working towards this for a while. I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, you know, okay guys, guess what? I'm only hunting public this year and I'm going to kill a 4.5-year-old buck. Like when I say that, I'm going to be like really confident and like have had the back history of doing that. I may never do that, but that's just kind of how I operate.
Well, it's just interesting to hear like that whole like back and forth. And like I say, I can use you and Aaron in the same vein because of the way that it is, and it's leaving deer to find deer and all this stuff. But it's like one of those things where we had a conversation earlier of saying like, you know, I feel sometimes you get yourself in this, group of people that you hang around with and they only kill this level of deer, and that can go both ways, right? So if I'm around people that are just shooting spikes and we're, you know, celebrating that, which is absolutely fine, but at some point you can say, okay, well, there's something else out there. And like Brad from BDS Outdoors, we had that conversation on the podcast of like, would you rather be the guy that kills we use 150, but for you, we'll call it 4-year-old deer on private every year from the same stand so that your wall looks amazing. But when you get out on public, like you can't find a deer or you can't, you know, or would you rather be the guy that's out there killing the biggest deer on the property, but they just don't happen to meet that criteria, age class that you are looking for? And it's this weirdest thing. And it's like, if you fall into that situation where like, oh, well, these are the deer that I kill every year, and this is what it's supposed to be, and this is what I have in my mind. And it's almost like you're not you, but like it just in general, like it you're not challenging yourself because these deer over here are easier or they're there. And like I've fallen into that too and like fell flat on my face on like a piece of like the ag public permission kind of piece that's around here where there's all these deer and I like suck ass at hunting them. And it's because everybody else that's in there is either better at hunting, we're all hunting the same spots and we're just like pushing these deer around, where it's easier for me to go to places where people suck at hunting.
Yep.
But you know, or they're making all of these mistakes, or they're very predictable, where they're not like the quote unquote what I would consider like a good hunter. And then I can pattern the people and I can see what the deer are doing and over time like figure it out. And it is like a giant thing, but it is almost like oh well, they're over here, so I'm just gonna go over there.
Yeah,
it's easier, and not easier in the sense, but the deer are there.
Deer are there. So for me, last year was the first time I killed a second buck on the same 2 bucks on one property that were over 4.5 years old. That's the first time I did that. And then, so I haven't had the repeated history in the same tree, the same property. I'm spread out. And granted, there's some turnover. Like there's a good chance that a buck I see on this property, I could see another property, but I haven't got to that point. Like the second buck, I never shot a buck on that property and I've been hunting it for a long time and finally sealed the deal. I've had opportunities. So I'm not to that point yet, but I can fully relate to that because it's kind of like how we gun hunt, right? Like you all have your same gun spot. That's where you sit, and you sit there and it's like, yep, if I'm shooting one, it's going to come right from there. So gun hunting is not as serious to me because of that, probably. It's more of shoot does and trigger control is all that really is for gun hunting. So I'm not there yet with that. And another thing, as you're talking, me and you find ourselves hunting the same piece of public. I know you, but I don't know you. You're just another guy. I do my scouting, do my intuition, my spidey senses, whatever is right. I hang and hunt a spot that everything came down. It comes out of the bed and on his way back to bed, hits this little scrape I found, or maybe it's a mock scrape I made. It's a beautiful 3.5-year-old 125-inch 8-point. And I, double lung that thing and it runs and dies and I'm happy, right? But that would not have met my goal. So there wouldn't mean as much to me because that's where I'm at. Now, I pass that deer, it goes by you smash it. You're probably that reward that you feel for killing that deer is so much, probably means more to you than it would mean to me. Strictly based on just what my goals are, right? And I don't know if that's normal or what, but I don't want to I guess when I go hunt public, I don't want to take an opportunity from a guy that deer could mean much more to them than me.
So you're saying that you're so good at hunting, you stay off of public so that you allow other people the joys?
Yes, exactly. That's what I'm feeling. No, I'm not that good, but I just don't want to take the opportunity. I don't know. Taking the opportunity is wrong, maybe. I don't know. I have bigger deer I can hunt on private. So why? Who am I? I'm going to come here and, I already got all this good hunting property. I'm just going to, come slide in and shoot a smaller deer because it's on public. To me, that's not fair. Now, all my private land disappears tomorrow. I'd be super sad. If I can't do that, I'd be scrambling. What would I do? Would my goals change? I would like to say no. I would like to say I would just go crazy on public, or maybe I would just bank my time up and spend more time in Kansas because I go out of state every year. I don't know. I hope I don't have that, but if I had to only hunt public, would my goals change? Would that deer mean more to me 5 years from now when I haven't filled a tag? Yes, I would 100% think it would.
Well, but I think that's an interesting concept there that you said, because it's something that I struggle with a bit, because we have different standards, right? But going hunting out of state is, I want to say for all intents and purposes, easier because there's more target opportunity. There's a different hunter density versus age class, and it's funny because when I go out of state, and I've heard Matt Lair talk about this too, is we shoot deer if we're from Michigan, we shoot deer that the locals wouldn't shoot because their standards are different. But we go there and we're like, look at all these big bucks, and the locals are like, those aren't big bucks.
Those are
like,
normal.
Good work. But you said you'd spend more time in Kansas, and I think that there's so many people that have walls full of deer from Kansas or from Iowa or from, Manitoba or, you name it. And it's like, that's why, like the deer that I shot in Kansas, I'm like, I would just want to year them on it. Like, I'm really happy with it. I'm happy. I love the story. I love all the stuff, but it's like, I've done it myself, been like, oh man, that's a great buck. Like, tell me the story. And they're like, I shot it in Kansas. I'm like, no, cool. Like, cause it's just a regular buck. You know what I mean? Like, and so when you're like, well, I just go out of state, like, because there's bigger bucks there. It's just it's just larger private land, but they let out of staters on it too.
Yes.
Like, so it is a weird thing, and it's fun to go do that and to have different hunt experiences. But I struggle with that too, just strictly because it's like, if I was such a good hunter, if I'm going to shoot big deer, like, why can't I do it here? Why am I not doing it here? Why am I going out of state? And it's just this weird,
because like you said earlier, there may not be that 5,000, 6,000 acre piece of public. There may not be a 4.5-year-old buck on there. Right. But if you go to Kansas or Missouri or Illinois, there's a really good chance that there's going to be one. But so I would have to just find them, because you know what? Guys shoot 4-year-old bucks on public. If they can do it, I can do it. So that's my mindset, like, going into that.
But my
would
thing
it mean
is
more?
Like,
would it mean more in Michigan? Is that what you're kind of saying? Like, it means more?
I do think it means more in Michigan. But I also I fall into this like weird spot where I've been out of state like multiple times and had my cameras back at home blowing up, but I'm freezing my balls off in a bottom in Ohio. And I'm like, why am I not hunting by there at home? And so it's like to like solely focus. But I think that's where it's pretty impressive for yourself, like, to have like such stringent goals, to be like, oh, this is what I'm going to do. But I don't know. It's really interesting. And like this year I was going to just hunt Michigan, and that's definitely not happening.
You made it till like what, July before that change?
Yeah. So maybe next year, but like same thing. I like the challenge of being able to go and like figure it out in different trains. And I definitely think that helps me come back here to Michigan and do it on public. Like, but it's also like, I've got a phone full of deer that I could show you, and you could age them, and you'd be like, 2.5, 3, maybe 3. Yeah, definitely a year and a half. Mm-hmm. And like, I guarantee you, if those walk by me, I'm going to shoot them. Like, and I'm going to be really happy about it. And it doesn't matter one bit to me. It doesn't matter like the $1, $2, like, because that was one of the things I was going to ask you is like, do you feel like after if you were to go on public and shoot a 3.5-year-old buck, are you like, oh, I've got these big bucks over there, I'm wasting a tag? Like I'm giving up an opportunity at one of my other deer, because I feel like that's the way that Aaron thinks about it.
I have not thought of it that way. Let me think on that. So have 2 buck tags, go do one of my, like, what'd you say earlier? Like, I'm going to go on a peasant hunt. And, but is it a peasant hunt when I've scouted it and I've had a camera there for a couple of years, like found a spot? Maybe.
Yes, because King Nate's on there, and he doesn't want to take an opportunity away from this, and it's guaranteed I'm just going to remove this opportunity from Adam. And like, if I was hunting 500 yards, they're like, you'd be the guy like, I passed him like 4 times yesterday, and it's just not really what I would
typically like. To be honest, I've had people
just on a platform. When you get
on a platform, I'll tell you. I won't name call, but typically I've had guys shoot deer that I passed, and I tell them congratulations. They don't even know I passed them, but because I don't want them to feel bad about it. which that's even worse. Gosh, I'm the problem, Adam. You're bringing all this stuff out. I mean, I am the problem.
That's why people
that's why it's such a turnoff.
Well, so when people come on here, they're like, and this has been really fun, but they're like, when I talk to the Latitude guys or I talk to like product people, they're like, you ask the question, like hard questions, like make you think about.
That's why I love listening to your podcast.
What you're doing, because it's fun, but like you've got to think about.
Yeah, I've never thought that way. I don't think I've ever, because it's not a guarantee no matter where I hunt, right? I'm confident, but I'm not that confident. If I hunted public early October because I had a peasant hunt and a 3-year-old comes by and I pass them, is it because I want to save that tag for a bigger, maybe trophy or higher age or higher scoring deer? I don't think so. I've never been really, I mean, I've been in that position in like out of state where you only have one tag. I've never thought, I don't want to burn my tag on that. Just no, not what I want. Like that's all I've thought in that regards. And I have a mindset that the only way to get older deer in Michigan is to pass them with trigger control. And the more people, neighbors, locals that hunt near me that are on that same page, then we can have more deer like that target. And if I want people to do that or encourage that, I want to make sure that I stay there because, and like, I like how you brought up hunting out of state. Like I've hunted out of state a lot. I've had no success bow hunting out of state. I've wounded one deer. That's it. That's the only deer I've ever shot at out of state. I've, passed a lot of deer, done those things. But what I've learned in hunting that way and those terrain features, that correlates with what I've learned in Michigan. Because I remember the first few years I did it, I would just go hunt a spot, look on the map or drive or walk around. Like that looks like that should be a good spot. Maybe it's not really that enticing to me, but like it's the only option. Hunt, and it's like, wow, deer after deer after deer. And like you see a big buck 100 yards away. It's like, holy cow, like why was he there? You get down and go walk over there. Like he was here. Like why? So like Michigan, I feel like has just as many deer, maybe better cover in certain spots and better food. So I was always like, well, why is there not deer like this in Michigan? Well, it's because we have hunters and all that stuff everyone knows about. So then my mindset was like, well, I got to start knocking on doors and, hey, I'm passing deer. You want to pass deer? And it's bit me in the butt. Talk about it on Aaron's podcast. Like I had one guy that slid in and started shooting everything. Because I mean, small property, obviously my camera was right there. And, some people are like on board with it and they want to do that. And you can kind of build that up. Public land, I feel like you could almost do the same thing if more guys are, I don't know. I feel like Michigan guys are really good at killing deer, right? Really good. A lot of deer get shot every year, be that public, be that private. And if more guys maybe like pass these deer, if their goal is older, I just don't like guys who say, oh yeah, I want to shoot a 3.5-year-old deer. That's my goal. I'll be really happy. And the first 2-year-old that walks by, they dust the thing. It's like, well, did you dust? Like, are you okay with that? Because you said you wanted to do it, but then every year you keep shooting that. Like that's when I'll have a conversation like, dude, Adam, what the heck, man?
Hey everyone, this is Captain Steve Roger from Into the Blue TV. And as soon as I feel a little break from this heat, I know that hunting season is upon us. Actually, the first time I ever went hunting, a buddy took me. Wasn't my father or my grandfather. In fact, I took my father on his very first hunt. Well, Academy Sports and Outdoor Stores has everything to gear up for the field for less. Plus, you can shop a wide selection of ammo, shotguns, deer corn, rifle, feeder, game cameras, camo, and more from the brands you trust. Text HUNT24 to 22369 to take $20 off a $100 purchase when you shop hunting supplies at academy.com. Need a hunting license? Pick it up in-store while you're shopping.
The only shooting stick with one-handed trigger pull adjustments has a new way to keep you at the top of your game. The Trigger Stick Apex. Built for sturdy support that adapts to unforgiving terrain with easy adjustments to make your big shots. With our DuraSteady 3-piece carbon leg design and interchangeable rock-solid clamp, nothing tops the Apex. The Trigger Stick Apex, only from Primos.
If you hunt enough, you learn the truth. What you seek speaks a language and knows it well. That's why every Primos call for everything you hunt is made the right way. We sweat every detail, so you get more out of every hunt. And nothing leaves our hand until we know it'll work in yours. Because we don't just make the world's best calls, we speak the language. Primos.
You said you're done shooting 1.5 old deer. Why did you dust that first thing? And if you look at me and say, it really wasn't that important to me, I still got pumped up, I'll respect that. I guess maybe it's kind of utopia view. If everyone passes 3-year-old deer in public, we'll have 4-year-old deer.
Well, but
it'll be great.
But the thing is like the public land thing is like impossible. And here's why. I mean, it's not. I mean, they could write it into law and people are still going to do it,
Baiting.
Yeah. But like when I hunt public land, I don't want anybody to know that I was ever there.
Yeah.
I don't want them to know that it's a good spot. I don't want them to know that that's where I hunt. I don't want anybody to know. And so to like then advertise and be like, hey, I'm hunting here too. There's all these deer.
Yeah.
Then it just takes,
There's it's a different dynamic for sure. Demographic of that kind of stuff.
And that's the beauty of the mobile hunting. That's the beauty of all this stuff. I mean, I killed my biggest buck in Michigan. And I think there was 13 tree stands around me. And
that's awesome.
I hung the deer's nuts right in front of this guy's ladder stand. I just did.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But
drag the deer by his trail camera too, do that kind of a thing.
No, there was no trail cameras out there.
Oh, okay.
This year, very near that spot, I set out 2 trail cameras, and there was trail cameras real close. And that's okay. I haven't seen any people on the trail cam. The one that I'm getting photos from, the other one I'm sure is taking photos. It's just not sending them to the bad spot. But
so any of the deer you've shot on public, whatever age class you want to, that doesn't really matter. Do you feel like that deer potentially could have made it to the following year?
I don't know.
Because that's like how I operate on private. It's like, okay, I will pass that deer because there's a really good chance that he's going to have turnover.
Well,
and then on public, I'm like trying to learn that. That's one of the things I'm learning. Like, okay, how many of these deer do I see year to year? And there is some turnover. Not a lot, obviously a lot less. But that's kind of my thing. Like, okay, if I don't take that deer out, he might be the one next year.
Well, but I think that's so for me, if you go back to like my, what drives me is like the validation, right? I'd never seen any of them deer before in my life. So like all of a sudden, like I'm sitting there and the one spot, the one guy that we hunt with at Art, he killed 2 bucks 100 yards from there opening day, but I think he saw like 7 or 8 bucks.
Okay.
And the one he killed was just a 5-point, but it had 4 on one side and a big spike or something, and the other one was an 8-point. And these are 3-year-olds, 2.5 through. I think one was 2.5, one was 3, something like that. But regardless, but I went back in there and I'd seen a spike go by me. I thought the day was over. I mean, it's one of those spots where it's super early, and then all of a sudden here comes this 3.5-year-old buck. Shot him, surprised,
Mm-hmm.
It was just kind of like I didn't have anywhere to hunt, so I hunted there. Good spot. There was some bucks, a week ago. And the other one was in the middle of the rut, but it came in perfect, just absolutely perfect. Super cool. 3.5-year-old deer. And, I'd never seen any of them before, but the amount of gun pressure there is so high. That's where it's difficult. But then, same property, I hadn't hunted in. I don't think any of us hunted it. I don't even think we stepped foot on it last year. And I threw up one trail camera, and there was bucks on bucks on bucks, and 2.5, 3.5-year-old bucks. So they're living to get to a certain age, and especially with, and that's not to say that we're not going in there and killing them, but I don't know if people just weren't in there because there weren't any acorns last year. I don't know what the deal was, but these deer lived somehow.
Yep, they made it through.
And there's always a good buck, but a good buck to us is a 3.5-year-old buck.
Yeah.
I mean, that's.
Which I would agree. I'm not trying to say like I'm the right one here. Like I do think I'm a little crazy. Like there are days when it comes to that, but we kind of roll that into the Patreon hunt. I'm going to go hunt with you guys somewhere I've never been. I kind of wanted to scout some, but my summer didn't quite work out to do that. Let's say, hypothetical here, 2.5-year-old buck comes strolling through, beautiful 8-point. Not going to get me, not something I want to target. But then let's say fast forward to the following year, you might find me very close to that same area, potentially seeing if that deer made it. And that could be just because I'm curious, other things the same. Man, you got me thinking because we talked about this earlier. What am I going to do when a 3-year-old, if I feel like it's a 3.5-year-old buck, obviously it's going to be much harder because I won't have trail cameras. I won't have any of that. It's just going to be like what I talked about earlier, educating myself on what I feel like those deer look like with some cues. What am I going to do? Right now, I'm going to tell you that I'm going to pass that deer. And is that because I have bigger deer on private? Yes. This probably influences that a little bit.
So here's the couple deer from the Patreon hunt.
And then the following year, I'll go on Patreon. I'm going to kill that deer at 4.5.
I mean, so they're there.
Yep, that's that's cool.
But I think there's like 3.5.
Yeah.
Like I think that's just where
that's the peak. Like that's when they don't return from that.
Yeah. And like, I mean, so like,
I think it's like no matter what you do, you have to find these little pockets of these deer. And for some reason, I have neighbors all around me, right? And not everyone.
Were you going to say high fence situation?
High fence, yeah. If you can have the money, put a fence up, and you'll find success. But yeah, I think it just comes down to finding a little niche that a certain deer likes, learn that niche, and try to capitalize on. That's what I kind of do. I have a buck right now that I'm chasing that. I missed him last year at 4, so at least I'm fairly confident. I've known about this deer since he was 2.5 years old. I've passed him at 2, 3, and I targeted him last year, and I messed up. I shot over him, and then seen him. He's back, and he does something a little different than any other deer I've hunted, and I figured that out last year, took advantage of it, and then just didn't execute. Right, that was my fault. So now going into this year, I'm doing the same thing. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try to figure out what he likes, and I'm going to try to capitalize on that. But he is in this little spot, and I don't see him near as much as I see a lot of other deer. So it's a challenge still for me, but that's the fun. Like I try to find those little things, and I'm doing that same thing on public, and I got this little spot that I thought was going to be a hidden little spot. Camera got stolen last year. There was bucks on there. There was buck sign that popped up, I'm assuming during the rut. So I was like going to play off that. And that failed. Another spot, same thing. Oh, this is a cool little overlooked spot potentially. Set a camera up and have like 6 guys walk by it within a week. And on the way to the camera, you find cameras like, well, it's not as hidden as I thought. And then I have another spot that I really like that I've had turnover that is exactly what I would envision a buck of that caliber using, and to put a camera, and I had some like really nice bucks on there. And then fast forward a year, they were there again. So I made some sits on it, never saw them. And then my camera got stolen. So like this year, I'm going to throw a couple sits in there just because I have 2 years of history and see if I can validate that if the conditions line up. But so like ideally, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to like force my way of hunting onto public and in Michigan, and I haven't had any success. So like I could be completely wrong. 5 years from now, I'll be like, yeah, I still suck at this. I'm not that good. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know. It's a fun thing to talk about, but I know that I like to stick to my goals, and I know that my goals can change. Like if I haven't shot deer in 5 straight years because I just have this unrealistic goal, EHD wipes out every deer, then I'll go on like a circus event trying to find other locations, different parts of the state to try to duplicate that. And I might not be as fortunate to do that. And maybe I'll have to pivot. I don't want to, but maybe I will. I'm not faced with that right now, so it's hard to speculate.
Well, I just want to circle back real quick to the Patreon hunt because I want to give you a sort of an idea of something that maybe you hadn't thought of that in like a camp setting. So you're in a, you talk about like affording these guys other opportunities, right? So like if you don't shoot it, somebody else gets to, all that stuff, right? If you're hunting, and so like you have guys hunting with you that have never, that are in camp, that have never killed a deer, that have never tracked deer, that have never had the opportunity to learn firsthand in the field about like why a hunt worked or something like that. Not shooting these deer, like even though we'll bust your balls and all that stuff, is still like kind of like taking those learning opportunities away from some guys to actually see that this is why, this is how, this is what happened. Yeah. And again, back to the deer that you didn't kill, you still have to execute, and you still have to say, okay,
it's not a guarantee.
Like this is why I was able to execute that. And that's one of the fun things about like doing a camp like this is, you have lots of different skill levels and different ideologies as far as like hunting, but the experience level is like the biggest thing that, we can watch videos and listen to podcasts and all that stuff, but it is very important to be able to see these things like in real time for these opportunities. And, that's something that is just something else to kind of think about, because you may be like,
that's a good point. It could be a really good learning experience for someone. Like, because it's a camp atmosphere. Hey, where'd you shoot this deer? Why'd you set up here? Why'd you do all that? I'd love to break that down. And then if you have a blood trail to go with it, that could be, wow, that could be very like educational and help out with that. But maybe let's do that with doe.
Well, but,
right?
But there's like that whole thing, right? Where, we're bucks and boats, man. Like your biggest buck is, Terry Drury's pass.
Yeah.
Like you just spent $200,000 on a brand new boat, Mastercraft, and you're so excited about it. And then this yacht pulls up, and then a helicopter lands on the one next to it, and it's like it's just a contest.
I shot 3 bucks last year, and probably no one knows what they look like. They don't know what it scored. They don't know They don't know how old they are. They don't give a crap. Right? They don't.
And they don't. They're not like, oh, did you see Nate? You shot a 3.5-year-old this year. Oh my God. And he did it on public. Yeah. Oh my God. His standards. Like he can no longer come.
What a peasant.
He can't come to the ranch anymore. He's no permission on our farm. Like,
no. That's not how I live, but that's really funny.
But I mean, these are things that like, in our mind are really important. Yeah. But if we look at the big picture and like, so you passed a deer that these guys would like, they've been trying for the last 10 years to find one. Yeah. And now you're like, I'm not going to shoot it. I'll show you where, but it won't be any help.
Yeah. What an a-hole.
You can go shoot this deer that isn't like.
But how do I express or talk about that? This has been my thing for a long time. Like the amount of energy and effort and, sleepless nights maybe that I've put into this, like the experience level to get to this point, anyone could be exactly where I am. Like I'm no special person, but how do I like explain that?
But you had, your dad or your grandpa or your hunting buddies to all like funnel all of this and kind of like direct you to help navigate it. And if there are other people out there that you have the opportunity to help navigate in the same way, like you didn't go out, like all the basket racks that you killed, like you did some of that on your own, but you learned that from the people that you were hunting with. You learned that from your dad and all that stuff. And then you said, okay, this is how I'm going to move up. But if you don't have any of those people around you and you're just saying, okay, I was at this camp and I thought it was going to be a real great thing. They were going to show me and help me. And then there's this guy just passing deer left and right. And he's like, yeah, I'll take you in there. But like, it's so easy. Like it's just right there.
Easy. I do like that perspective. And that definitely was something I was thinking of going into it. But also if someone comes to me that's new, like let's say someone's in this camp and we hit it off, right? And like, they express the desire to get better, or they pick my brain, I will say whatever I think. Like, you ask me a question, I'm just going to relay information I've learned or heard from other people and do that. And yeah, I have been afforded the opportunity. I've had good opportunities presented to me my whole life, but I've capitalized on them too. Like, it does come down to, you can lead a horse to water, but they still got to drink it, right? Like, I feel like I do a really good job of assessing the situation. I'm giving this opportunity. It's a ball right down the middle. I got to crush this thing, right? So, but some people don't even know that is the ball to swing at. And that does take time to see that. And if a bunch of people say, you know what, Nate, we really need you to shoot a buck, just to shoot a buck, whatever. It's just a deer at the end of the day. I'm not going to be less of a human. I'm not going to be that. I can tell you what I want to do, but if it's like, yo, I'm sitting, like, I find myself sitting in a tree with someone, and it's like the heat of the moment, they're like, you got to shoot that deer because it's the Michigan 11 point. That'd be really funny. Like, I probably would, but it's still, man, I don't know. I'd probably joke around with it and be like, giving them the bow and let them shoot it. Because I've shot a lot of those deer. I don't know, man. It's always this back and forth, like this pendulum. What do you want to do with your hunt? And I do want to help people. I do. But do I have to shoot a deer to help people, you think?
Well, not necessarily, but I mean, we can go back to, Joe Davis passed deer the first day, and then nobody was seeing any deer. And then it was like, well, this would have been a really cool camp if we would have had some deer on the pole. But
yeah.
We don't. So then the last night, everybody kills all the deer, and Joe killed a whole family of deer.
Yes.
Because,
that's right.
Yeah. And because he was like, I'm not going through that again.
Yeah.
Because he had goals, and it's like.
So if I pass a deer, don't tell anyone. That's what you're telling me. I won't say.
So he's a liar too.
Yeah. You got to ask me. Say honest after. Yep.
But that's the thing is, like, that's the beauty of, like, hunting in the group. And I'll say it, if guys have never been to a deer camp, if they've never done a deer camp, like, go hunting out of state, like, with your buddies, and maybe in a setting where you don't all ride together, because, or you're not hunting in the exact same place, because I think, and it's from my upbringing, like, being a kid, being, 12 years old, 14 years old, 15 years old, whatever. Like, it didn't matter if, like, you got cold and you came back and you were the first one back in camp. It didn't matter because you were listening for those gunshots. You were looking for the lights. And until the last light came back, until the last guy was in camp, we were still hunting. There was still a chance that we were going to track a deer, that we were going to go have to drag, that we were going to have to go do all of these things. And those are we think of hunting as acorns and buck beds and rubs and scrapes, but, like, that whole community and the going out and, the harvest and, the tracking and all of these things, that's where the memories are. Like, like you said, you killed 3 deer last year. Nobody knows what they were. They don't remember, but you remember. Whoever was with you remembers that one. They might not remember what they remember. We remember all the things that sucked. We remember all the things like, why would you do this?
I'm
like,
so out of shape.
Why did you? Yeah. All of those things that when you get to share it with somebody, that's where you make the memories. And, like, I think that's what keeps this thing going, because we can kill all the big deer we want all by ourselves and never tell anybody about it. And it's just a me thing, but you can go and shoot, a basket rack 6-point with 10 of your buddies, and I guarantee you're going to have more fun.
When I have dementia, I will still remember that.
Yeah.
I'll talk about that. Yeah. I think so. To bring it back to the Patreon hunt, my expectations, like, guys always talk about, what do you think? What are you going to shoot? If I have a doe within bow range, I'm going to be pumped. Never been there before. I understand that it's hard hunting. I do not think I'm this elitist best hunter. I'm the best, Grand Rapids hunter in the world. I don't think that at all. So for me to have a fun hunt is going to, or a success, whatever you want to call that. If I have a doe within bow range and I can kill that doe, I'm going to be over the moon. Like, that is going to be like, I did good. Now 3 years from now, if I've won this Patreon for 3 or 4 years in a row, I would really like to be more confident in that. Like, oh yeah, I'll probably have some deer in range. I'll do that. We're going in a time, I'm giving up a weekend to do this, and I have no issue with it whatsoever. Like, that's fine. I could have a daylight picture of a really big deer, which it happens. Guess what? I get daylight pictures of deer all the time. I don't kill them. Like, so I'm not going to let things like that influence me. But if I get a doe in range and I can shoot it and then have guys go track it and experience that camp atmosphere, yeah, let's do it. That's what I'm looking forward to right there.
Absolutely. Me too.
Hopefully you're going to shoot a 4.5-year-old buck and I'll be like, oh yeah, look at this guy.
You know, I'm going to do it. If I do it, it'll be with a trad bow because that's what I'm hunting with that.
On the ground?
No.
Or are you going to get up in a tree?
I'll be in a tree.
Okay.
I got a couple of different.
You're telling me you're
areas.
doing this and you're not even bringing your compound?
I'll bring it. I got bows.
I know. But are you literally going to hunt your recurve
I
the whole
did
time?
last year, yeah.
Oh, that's cool. So I need to bring mine now?
No.
Yeah, now I got to bring mine? Like, come on, man. Just
No. It's like for me, like I've been hunting after all the leaves are down and the deer are really stressed, like making it very much more difficult. So this year I'm going to hunt, some of the earlier season with the trad bow too. So
the Byron Horton approach, doesn't he talk about like?
Well, yeah,
that's kind of like the first part of October.
Yeah, but talking to the guys that I've been talking to, they're like, you need some cover, you need some leaf cover.
Yeah.
And I've got after that, the last week in October, I've got a hunt planned up in the UP, and I think I'll have some really controlled environment stuff. You can bait up there. You can, so I can set a bait station for a few days, go hunt some bucks, and then come back to there and shoot the first spotted thing that walks up.
Yeah.
And be.
Are you doing a saddle or do you do a stand?
Yeah, I'll be out of saddle. I have a XOP, one of their small stands that I'm going to use as like a hybrid setup. Because last year I had a really hard time being far enough away from the tree because I like to cant my bow. And
that's my one issue. That's what I was going to ask you because I know you talked about canting your bow before. That's my one experience with a saddle that really struggled my recurve, that part of it. So I bought a B stand last year to kind of pair with that. And I think because I have a property that I'm only trad hunting with my dad, and that was like my mind says like, okay, like I cant the bow. I can shoot both ways, but I'm much more comfortable canting it to make it, I'm a little more accurate that way. And I was like, man, there's enough going on to have that, tree in the way or limbs in the way or whatever.
So you change your goals based on the equipment?
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Shoot straight and come hungry, my friends. This is Duck Camp Dinners.
Oh, he mad.
Big things planned with some alligator, some ducks. It's gonna be good, and I'm looking forward to cooking. Don't miss a new episode of Duck Camp Dinners. It's coming at you every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern, right here on Waypoint TV.
Nope.
So 4.5-year-old buck.
That
has
property
to be
is 5.5-year-old only.
So
with a trad bow.
So you're just not shooting anything with a trad bow.
No. Well, maybe there's potential for some.
Yeah. So you're gonna shoot some does.
Yep, gonna shoot some does
with the trad.
But I get it. Like that's fine. That's how it is. And the reason why that is I'm not the sole person on the property. I may have more time, freedom to bow hunt. And bow hunting, I don't want to take opportunities away from other people. Like. If you in the private land game, like a lot of people got to share property, and we all know that guy that hunts the crap out of it. And well, yeah, of course he shoots it every time because he hunts 4 times more than I can. I don't want to be that guy. So I try really hard to like manage that aspect of my life too. Or, well, you have the best spot. Like of course you're going to shoot all the deer. Well, I try to be fair and I try to do that because at the end of the day, it's all about like me being happy, but I don't need to be selfish to be happy.
So you are okay. Like you're on a property that only has like, can only shoot 5.5-year-old deer. And so you said like there's 190 that got killed.
bush.
somewhere near where you hunt.
Yes.
You're okay with that deer walking by at 35 yards and you're like, I can't shoot him, or missing that deer at 17
yards
because he ducked your arrow because you're using lesser equipment.
Yeah.
And you're like,
yeah,
that wouldn't throw you into a tailspin.
Like I'll be super upset. I'll just be like, what a story. Like, what a story. I'm so dumb. That memory. To be honest, I probably will only bow hunt there a couple times. Like, I don't historically get to hunt a lot. It's primarily our family gun hunting area. And not everyone who gun hunts or hunts that area is in the same mindset. It's just kind of a thing between me and my dad. It's a small property. It's not that big. And we kind of did a handshake on it. And my dad hasn't even shot his recurve this year. So don't know how often he's going to even go. So realistically, it's not like this property is right around the corner of my house and I don't know of a 190, 170, hanging out. I do know of some older age. So I have yet to have a 4.5-year-old buck, killed, or a 5.5-year-old buck killed over 150. I'm in the 140 purgatory, kind of feels like. I have seen and hunted deer bigger, but haven't sealed the deal on them. So yeah, if I have this deer locked in, that's like a 170, maybe there'd be some backdoor deals going. But Dad, hey, what do you think? Like, we have this year. What should we do this? But we've never had that. I mean, that really big deer, the jump he did from 3 to 4 was astronomical. Like, that deer was not that. And if enough people do some research, they probably have a pretty good idea what deer I'm talking about. But so you can get surprised with deer and do that kind of a thing. But yeah, I mean, I passed that deer that turned into a 190. Like, that's cool, right? Like, hey, that deer, I could have killed him and never know. Now that person never would have been able to experience that. That's cool too. So, yeah.
I've passed a lot of button bucks that turned into really something.
Dude, and some good steaks and some good burger and all that. I like this conversation because we're both passionate, right? You love helping people. You love doing, hunting, doing that. But what a difference, right? Like, if you were to take me and put me in your shoes and vice versa, we both would be like, what's going on here? Had to react to it. And I like that you're happy with what you do and you know exactly who you are, right? You know what kind of a hunter you are, be that ethics all the way down to whatever you want to do. And that's cool. And I respect that kind of stuff. And it does it's a journey to get to where you are right now. And any new hunter listening to this, please, I'm not an a-hole. I might sound like it. I know Adam tries to make it seem like I am, and I feel personally attacked here. But overall, I want everyone to enjoy this sport and to have fun and get outside and do those things, because it's archery and in general has been a big part of my life, and it's a good time. It's good for you.
Well, there's another thing too. There's another part of that, which is, sitting here having this conversation. Some people, we forget that, like, it's really hard. Like, there are things that make it easier, to, whether it's a high powered rifle and a scope and a spotlight, or, there's things that make it way more difficult, like, from the ground with traditional equipment. But I've said it forever, like, unless you're, going out to that Osage and cutting it down and chewing the intestines and making sinew and making your own string and flint napping your own broadheads, which there are people that do all of those things. Like, you can't really judge anybody else on, like, what they shoot. And depending on, like, what the situation they're in, if they only have 2 days to hunt per year, or they have, no money and all the time, or more money and no time. Like, it's all these things. But I think we forget, when we're seeing all these guys that are doing the things that we want to do, this is by no means easy. And the results versus the amount of effort put in is usually, along the same level. There's always going to be the guy with the ladder stand who shoots him from the ground in his t-shirt when he's out there wandering
Smoking
around.
a dart.
Yeah. But that doesn't happen every time. And I think that that's why we are so passionate about it, because there's so many ways to do it, and you're finding your own lane, finding your own journey. But when you see these photos and when you hear people like Nate talk, or when you hear, me say things like, there's been, there is an infinite number of failures in there. Like, this is hard stuff. So in doing that, take your own time, understand where you're at in it, and enjoy it. And don't let anybody tell you that it's not fine. Because as soon as like you pull the trigger and go up to that animal, like that's the success. And even if it is got spots, or it's, doesn't have any teeth left because it's 17 years old, like, it doesn't matter. The journey to get there was the fun part. And it's funny, when my buddy Josh, we talked about this before, but like, that's the part he hates about hunting, is like walking up to the deer, because it's like, it's over. Like, it's like, we're so excited for the challenge that it's over when you go do that, And so just remember that it's a journey, and like, to get here, it's tough, and it's a fun suck.
Fun suck. Yeah, 5 years from now, I want to be a better woodsman. I want to be a better hunter than I am today. Like, I just want to keep rolling, keep the ball rolling, keep learning, just be a sponge, learn as much as I can, and maybe that means that there's going to be some humble pie in the next few years. Like, I'm okay with it. I've ate plenty of it. I've ate so much of it, and it's good. It's all good, and yeah, I don't really know what else to say after that, because I mean, I parallel that. Like, I stand behind that, and yeah, let's pound our chest and go run up the hill and smile the whole time we're doing it.
Awesome. Well, it's been a fun day, man. For you, like, people want to follow more along your your journey on these big old deer. Where can they do that?
So Michigan Wild's my podcast. It's on all the platforms. I'm part of the Sportsman's Empire. So I don't know if there's 20 podcasts on there. It's quite a bit. So you can find me on that as well. Cool thing about Michigan Wild is it's obviously, I love whitetail hunting. That's my bread and butter, but I do touch on a lot of other things. So small game hunting, had a couple guys on talking about pure fishing for salmon. I've had guys talk about fly fishing, trying to kind of diversify coon hunting. We had an episode on that. But there's a lot more whitetail stuff than the other things. But it's kind of fun in the off season to kind of have a little bit different flavor of that stuff going in there. So that's kind of what I try to do. Weekly episode comes out on Mondays. I'm going to start ramping up, having 2 episodes a week here through the fall, because it seems like that's when a lot of the guys tune in to podcasts. I mean, I listen all year, so I didn't really realize that there's like kind of like ebbs and flows of that. So I'm learning, every year maybe what kind of guests I have on or what kind of topics. But yeah, man, I've been doing this for a year and a half and still love it, still find the passion, getting better. I'm not techie by any means, but kind of have a social media presence now, which is weird. Never had much of that at all. I'm getting close to 600 followers on Instagram, so like that's like a big milestone for me. I'm like, let's go, or getting there. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Just tried my best to be as open and as transparent as I can, even when I'm getting verbally attacked across the table. But do my best. And that's that.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for making the trip.
Yeah, absolutely.
Get 3 likes and 2 shares.
Don't miss a new episode of Duck Camp Dinners. It's coming at you every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern, right here on Waypoint TV.
In Wild Country, rules were not created by man. Don't miss Wild Country, Wednesdays from 7 to 11 p.m. Eastern. Presented by Primos. Speak the language. Waypoint TV, the destination for outdoor entertainment.